Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD, BlenderHD. You're going to follow me on Twitter. And it's Monday, April 29th. And you know what we do on Mondays? We bring in James Mccool. Mondays with Mccool. James Mccool is the co-author with me on the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports, the 15-hour audio DFS masterclass you see right there that you can pick up at theoryofdfs.com. He also helped with the Theory of DFS for advanced players, making all those custom Excel tools that I do use on a daily basis alongside RotoGrinders Lineup HQ, alongside SimLabs. Use all the tools that I use. Get theoryofdfs.com. Learn more about the game Theory of DFS, and then subscribe here to RotoGrinders. We have 3 deals for you. I don't want you to take them because too many people are using the same tools and projections that I am, and you're making it harder on me. So you could get 6 months RotoGrinders Premium. You get that $250 off. Or your first month off, you just get $40 off. Just why? We're just giving away stuff. Or $19.99 for 3 days, right? Why is it so cheap? Why are we making this so cheap? You're making it way too hard on myself, right? I use the tools and the projections here. I mean, all my betting, all my props and everything like that is all stuff here from RotoGrinders, right? And the more people that use it, James, the more people that use this stuff, the lines move. They move too quickly. I have to wake up even earlier because people they're beating me to the punch because they're using the same exact stuff that I'm using, and it's getting tougher. And that's James. That's kind of what economics is.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're gonna have to get up before 9 a.m. God forbid, that's gonna be awful.
I have been getting, James, to give me credit on Major League Baseball days. I mean, now every day is baseball. Right. I've been getting up 8-ish.
Wow.
8-ish. But I do the overnight. See, the thing is, James, is that a lot of times, depending on I time how early I get up, or I don't have an alarm or anything. It just depends on when I want to get out of bed, on how many lines were put up overnight compared to like they weren't. Like I feel more compelled. Like if there's 12 baseball games going on a day, and like 20 of the pitchers like strikeout props have already been up before I went to bed, I could sleep in a little.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But if like barely anything's been up, and it's like now I feel much more compelled to wake up as early as possible to make sure to get them before other people do.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I think that you kind of treat it as like that's just when you're clocking in for work, right? If you don't have that much work to do, maybe you get in the office a little bit later, right? I mean, maybe you get into the office half an hour, 45 minutes later than you usually would. But if you got a lot of work to do, maybe get in a little bit earlier. Maybe wake up at 7:45, wake up at 7:30, get your props in, get your action in. Maybe if there's a soccer slate, maybe you get up at 6:30. What time do you have to get up for soccer slates? What time when there's
Saturday
like a
morning? The soccer slate's at 10 Eastern. I don't have to get up at 6. They
have
an early game for Showdown, but I don't play it.
Oh, well, see, I don't know. I don't play soccer slates.
By the time, but with you, by the time I'm up in the morning normally on a weekday,
yeah,
it's already what, dinner time for you? I mean, lunch. I mean, it's probably late. It's late afternoon for you. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, I get up 5:30 or 6 every day, and just.
What time do you go to sleep?
10 usually.
So how do you not? Do you don't take in the West Coast basketball games?
No, hell no. I don't care. Why would I care? Suns get swept. Why do I want to watch Suns get swept? Doesn't matter.
But to be fair, James, I mean, I am doing work late at night. I mean, like if you're going to sleep at 10 o'clock Eastern, like none of the baseball lines are up.
Well, you and I make money. You and I make money very differently. I make money by having things set and done and getting all my morning work up before 9 a.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. You make your money by getting your action in at about midnight 30 or whatever. So we just have different work schedules. We have different ways we make money.
Yes, Cloud LLC. This is not necessarily a new show, but if it's new to you, that's fine with me. Hit that thumbs up button, right? You missed the show, obviously hit those thumbs up buttons. Thummy thumbs, you know how much I like those. James, I wanted to talk a little bit about economics only because I got some DMs recently. People asking me for prop betting stuff. Obviously, I'm here every morning. I'm an open book. You could just come and you could ask whatever the hell you want. I know a lot of times we cover DFS slates. We do props and pick them. We do everything here on the show. Anything you're thinking about when it comes to any of this stuff, come here in the morning. Understanding economic concepts. It's very like we talk about this type of stuff like in the theory of daily fantasy sports that the courses that we make. Like a lot of people don't realize. I mean, obviously, the thousands of people that have bought this know that most of the especially the first course, aren't about sports. Like it's understanding what games are, right? We talk a lot about what's a parimutuel game. What does a zero sum game mean? What is the effect of rake on the skill gap between opponents? Once you understand like the concepts of games, you could devise strategies in any game to exploit opponent's mistakes and increase the expected value of your outcomes, right? In the same way in sports betting is maybe less of a game, has less of a game dynamic than daily fantasy, maybe obviously other than a game like Pick Six. Like when we started to talk about the parimutuel peer-to-peer stuff, then we're talking more about that's closer to a board game than it is sports. But sports betting is more closer to like the stock market, right? Than it is, whether, not you think a guy's going to, throw the ball for 300 yards. So understanding basic economic concepts of markets will help you solve a lot of issues that you have or questions that you might have in how you go about navigating DraftKings, FanDuel, Caesars, BetMGM, Prize Picks, and Underdog, any of those types of things that, unlike Pick Six, unlike DFS, like we get the salaries that come out and like we're done, right? It's that the information is not, other than obviously news that comes out for the actual sports, but the actual game dynamic doesn't change. Like DraftKings basically releases the board, to use esports terms, because you know how much you like when I use the esports stuff. When the map comes out, like the map's not going to change, right? Here's the map. You know what the map's going to be. Like it's not going to change throughout the day. You know they're playing this map. But in sports betting, the map changes like fluidity wise throughout the entire day. So it's not, you can't just treat it as, okay, what's the map for today? Well, what are the numbers for today? And then the numbers at 7 in the morning and the numbers at 7 at night. Oh, it's the same map. It's not. Was that a good reference?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Most of the time, when we're dealing with League of Legends, for instance, the map is always static. But with Counter-Strike, they go through a map selection process before the games start, and we can have a pretty decent idea of what those maps are going to be. They're not static, like you were saying, because you don't know esports. But
okay,
if
so
the maps
then the analogy is awful. Then I just literally made an awful analogy.
Well, no, but the concept makes sense if we knew the map ahead of time. That would make sense.
But in DFS, we know the slate ahead of time. We could look at the salaries here at 11 o'clock in the morning and go, well, should we play this guy and that guy at this price and that price? And we know where they're playing and everything like that. It's not going to be where, well, at 4 o'clock, this pitcher's price is going to be $800 cheaper. Like, it's not like that dynamic doesn't exist. But in sports betting, it does exist.
Right.
And understanding why the map changes will make you understand why you're either making profitable bets long term or making unprofitable bets long term, in the same way that building a plus EV lineup in DFS. James, we talk about the three levers, right? What are the three levers of DFS lineups?
Projection, leverage, and why am I blanking on the last one? Projection, leverage, and correlation.
Correlation, yes. So those dynamics of how you mix between having the highest projected lineup, median-wise, the highest median projected lineup, gets you a great cashing rate in GPPs, right? But it's much harder to win because you're sharing a lot of points with other people because the higher projected lineups tend to be higher owned. How do you find lower owned lineups that also have a decently high enough projection? How much do you sacrifice one for the other? Correlation, having multiple players from the same team that are correlated to each other, quarterback with a wide receiver, multiple batters on the same team in baseball, right? Even negative correlation, like not playing two fighters from the same fight in MMA, right? They're negatively correlated. They boost they increase the variance of the lineup, so you have more high end and low end outcomes. So those are the tools that you, and depending on the size of the contest, right, the contextual variables of the slate, what types of lineups should you be building? Well, I'm playing a contest with only 100 people, and they're all horrible, right? Horrible opponents that, they play injured players and everything. Quite possible you could beat 100 people by just playing the optimal lineup, just playing the top projected lineup. Who cares about correlation or leverage because they're just so bad that that's the most profitable lineup against those people. But if you're playing against 99 sharp people, it's quite possible that there's some 5% owned player that's going to make the difference. That you need to find that. You need to find a way to get different enough and sacrifice projection to do so. This is the whole dynamic of what DFS is. Sports betting, James, works in a similar way, but it's not peer-to-peer. It's like player versus environment in a way. And I think many people enter sports betting thinking that they're entering something that's static. Right? I've had people, this is just over the weekend, and I've been sick, so I'm getting these DMs, and sorry if it took me a while to respond to some of that they're trying to bet based on like a top-down approach to like props, right? Where you're taking one market that you're assuming is efficient and comparing it to another market that's inefficient and essentially arbitraging the asymmetry of the prices. In the same way that if you were in a town where, there are 10 places, I'm going to make a very dated reference, like there are like these big TV electronic stores. Nobody beats the Wiz or the Crazy Eddies in New York City or whatever. Right? Someone's selling TVs, for $200. But down the road, the TVs are going for $250.
Yeah.
And down the road, there's TVs going for $225. And and then there's some place that's selling them for $150.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's the whole market in general. There's an inefficiency where you could go to the place that's selling it for a $150, and then go to the place and sell it for $250 and make $100 on arbitrage because the buyers and sellers, there's an asymmetry between buyers and sellers. Some are selling it for high, some are selling it for low. So what people try to do, that's called the top down or steam chasing in sports betting, is, I see that the market is going to be going in this direction, right? Let's say we take a strikeout prop or something. I could just pick something out. Luis Severino's 5.5 strikeouts or whatever. Let's say the under is minus 105 or minus 115 on FanDuel or something. If that's the fair price, right? Let's say without projections, you go, well, I'm going to go to a place that takes sharp action.
Yeah.
And if they have it like minus 130, I'm going to treat like that price as the efficient price, right? It's like going to the electronic store that pretty much they price their things at like exactly what it like. You go on eBay, that's what they're selling it for also. Like you feel like I can't get a better price here, right? So that's probably the true price of the TV, or at least close to it.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not a TV expert. I don't have no way of appraising how much a TV is worth, but I'm just going to bet that this market, this store, they're the sharpest price. And then use that, buy TVs at cheaper, right? Or more expensive, right? You buy it at the cheaper price and you go to the more expensive place and you sell it there. That's exactly what you're doing when you're going, well, I'm going to look at an offshore sports book. They have it at minus 145. And DraftKings has it at minus 115. And you go, well, I think the offshore sports book, that's where the sharp people bet. That's where they're taking big money. It's going to move, right? DraftKings eventually is going to get to minus 145, but they're not there yet. They haven't moved it yet. So you want to chase the steam, get it at minus 115, and then by game time, it's minus 145, and you get that. That's what's called closing line value.
Yeah.
That's the top-down approach, James, right? I'm giving a very fair representation of it, right?
Yeah, that's right. That is right.
The issue, however, is that people do this with a lot of assumptions. And what do they say about assumptions, right?
Make an ass out of you and me.
Right. And probably more you than me, but definitely not me. So people make this assumption, James, that like this sharp, like what's the sharp book? What are you using as your source of truth? Like the whole top-down, this whole methodology is based around the economic concept called the efficient market theory, right? Or the efficient market hypothesis, right? I told you, James, we're talking about economics today.
Yeah.
Now, EMH is not like perfect. Like it's actually not, it's almost not even provable, right? EMH means that like everything is priced in. It's very similar to what I say. It's like, oh, everything's in the projections, right? If you, Joe Blow, go to look at the bets that are available today on whatever, the NBA games, NHL games, MLB, that most likely, like the smartest of people have already looked at this, right? And like the wind in this game, and the starting pitcher is on a pitch limit, or this guy's out of the lineup. It's like if you know the information, that means the market knows the information.
Right.
So when people look at a line, like in a football game, and they go, wow, I'm definitely going to take the under 37.5 because they're telling me on Sunday morning they're taking the under 37.5 because it's 20 degrees and snowing. And that's not very good for scoring. Like I'm like, and how are you the only one to know about this? Like it's Sunday morning. Did people just wake up and not realize that? Like the reason why the number is 37.5 is because it's been bet down a touchdown over the past week because everyone has seen the weather forecast, right? So all you're doing is kind of like double counting. It's already in the number, right? It's already there. The only things that wouldn't be in the number are things that that other people don't know, right? But if you're using the top-down approach and trying to chase steam, you don't know anything differently than the market. Like the whole point of it is that you don't need to know anything different. You're trying to get a price that is going to move before it moves, right? But in order to compare of where it's going to move, you need to have a source that is actually efficient.
A source of truth. Yep.
Right. You need that. If we here's another. I'm going to use another bad analogy. Okay. Maybe more on our scope. James, did you ever collect baseball cards?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. like all American men, of course. When we were younger, we collected baseball cards. Of course, I was the hustler baseball card. I don't care about my favorite players. I just care about what the Beckett price was and how I could get my friends to trade me cards that were worth a lot of money because they were rookie cards of people they never heard of, and I'll
Sure.
just give them Yankee cards that are just commons, right? You know, like I was that type of I was
Yeah,
that kid. Uh, and back in the day, I mean, this is the 80s, right? Right. I'm an old guy. There used to be obviously baseball card shows, right? So you know, like flea market. You know, there would be the church, and then, and this is Brooklyn, New York. So there's a lot of people, but in the neighborhoods, there would always be like kids trading baseball cards on stoops, right?
yeah,
We're talking about like 8, 9. You're 8, 9, 10 years old, 11. Something around that age. So it was commonplace on the weekends that like you could essentially like walk around the neighborhood and with your like leaflet, people sometimes you put it in, like the little binders or everything, and go around and trade baseball cards around the neighborhood.
yeah.
And what's the difference, James, between if we consider every stoop, let's say each block, right? I lived in a condensed area. It was Brooklyn. So I lived on 63rd Street, right? So there was a 63rd Street market, right? It was on my stoop. I was the facilitator.
You were the
But on
guy. Yeah,
64th Street, right? 64th Street, my friend Greg, they were trading cards on his stoop. That's a different market, right? 65th Street, Eric, my friend Eric, he took care of that market, right? We're like 9, 10-year-old kids, like, and it's like 5 kids trading baseball cards. How efficient do you think that market is?
probably not very efficient, Jordan.
Compare those markets to at the local church where with 50 or 60 professional, mostly professional sports card collector traders,
Mm-hmm.
that are paying $50 a table and, selling their stuff. If you went to the card show, how efficient is that market?
That's probably super efficient unless the card show is completely filled with 8 and 9-year-old kids, in which case,
Right.
probably still not very efficient.
Right. But for the most part, if I took a card and I just said, okay, here's this card, and I went to the 8, 9-year-old kids in 65th Street and said, how many candy bars would you give me for this? Like, it's quite likely that they give me way too many candy bars for this Claudel Washington
Yeah,
80 Tops card than if I go to the card show on Saturday afternoon, and I go and they look at me and they go, dude, kid, that's a 5-cent card. Like, what do I care? Like that, like this, like it's much more likely that happens, that I don't get Kit Kats for my Yankee common card.
yeah,
That
yeah.
that obviously, the Mets fans want the Gary Carter. Yeah, the kid that likes the Mets wants his Gary Carter and Keith Hernandez cards, right? The Yankees fans, they want their Don Mattingly stuff, right? And then you could get all the Roberto Alomar rated rookie cards from them, because who's this guy Roberto Alomar? From that says rated rookie, whatever. I'll take it, right?
Yeah.
And then you go to the card show and and then you go and you trade and they go, oh, that's a $7 card, and then they give you like $3.50 because they'll give you 50% off a Beckett price, and then now you have even more candy, and then you buy more cards, and then you go around, and this sounds, people are like, what does this have to do with sports betting? It's like what I'm doing is literally arbitrary. That is what you're doing if you're. I'm going to go to this book. I'm going to go to the card show, find out what the actual value of these cards are, and then go and find a place where people are undervaluing this until they realize that that's the price of the card, right?
Right.
Because eventually the kids from the 63rd Street stoop find out that the kids on the 65th Street stoop are valuing this card way more, and they're wondering why they only got one ice cream bar when they're trading it for for God knows what, right? Because a lot of times that's what you're trading it for. People, that this was my life when I was like 10 years old, 9 years old, because
Yeah.
our parents, James.
Yeah.
I find this entertaining. Our parents would give us like not allowance, but like ice cream truck money.
Yeah.
This is the summer or whatever, right? So like it's $2 for the ice cream truck, right? Because the ice cream truck guy would come around,
Yeah.
and our parents hated us. They just wanted her go out and play stickball, and we'd be gone for
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
hour.
Yeah.
Didn't
Go
matter,
play in
right?
traffic. Literally go play
Right,
in
go
traffic.
play traffic, right? You got the quarter waters, right?
Yep.
Right. They'll get $2 if they gave you $2, and this is like 1988 or something, right? They give you $2, like you could live for as a kid. You're a
Yeah.
kid for a
Like,
day.
that's basically $10 now.
Right,
That's
right.
good money.
$2 you're buying it, right? Like the ice cream, but you get the ice cream pop for 50 cents. You get the little like the Bazooka Joes for a nickel each or whatever. You could and everyone has all their candy, right? We're playing, tag football or some stickball or something, trading baseball cards. We all have, candy and everything like that. And then, but you're using the candy and you're using the money that everyone got from their parents as currency, as actual currency, right?
Right.
So you're trading candy and stuff, going, "Oh, I'll give you these baseball cards. You give me your candy bar, right?"
Now,
And then you
really
trade
quick.
the candy bar for something else. And sometimes you trade the candy bar for actual money. And what I do is, my parents don't realize that they gave me $2 and I come home with $5 and I've eaten for the day, right? I've had 3 ice cream bars. Like, how did you make money on this? It's like, well,
I want to point out really quick
welcome
that
welcome to the villain origin story of 45-year-old Jordan Cooper, of how I got here. It's like,
I want to point
I
out
learned from a very young age.
that dynamic of your parents giving you money actually is like VC funds and hedge funds giving money to people to go then use in the markets, expecting them to be able to make a return on it, right? Like that's just capital. So even that
Right.
has an economic thing here. Like that's perfect.
Because let me tell you, I made a fortune off of those Roberto Alomar 88 Donruss
Oh, I believe it.
rated rookie card. Because they were literally like $7. I believe at the time that I made a lot of that was like it was like $7 at the time. And kids were just, all I cared about was, did it say was it a rookie card? I want it. Right. That's all I cared. And all my everyone else just cared if they had Mets or Yankees or Jose Canseco or some Mark McGuire, whoever was big at the time. And then I just take all these. I would end up around the neighborhood. I'd end up, next thing you know, 3 weeks later, I have 10 of these cards, and then I go to the card show, right? Because no 9 and 10-year-olds have real money, right?
No.
Right, the $2 from their parents for ice cream, like that's small ball stuff. So I end up with the 10 Roberto Alomar cards. And I go to the card show and they go, "Well, this is worth $7. It's worth $7, but we'll give you $350 because of course they want to make their money." So I sell 10 of them for 30. Now I have $35 in my pocket as a 9-year-old. Right?
Which again is worth like $200 in the A.
Right.
That's
People are
great.
wondering how I'm able to spend 2 hours playing Street Fighter 2 at the video game place. Right? I got all these quarters. I'm good. Right?
So Jordan, how does this relate to sports betting?
Well, look at exactly what 9, 10-year-old me did. I found an efficient market, the card show.
Yep.
Found out what everything was worth, and then went to non-efficient markets and exploited the inefficiencies. Right? People, these kids thought that their Mets and Yankees cards were worth a lot more. These are I dealt with kids that didn't mind just opening up packs and throwing the cards around, putting in their bike tires, right? Those type of kids, right? So to them it's a piece of cardboard practically, because like if they didn't know the person's name, it might as well they turn into a paper plane. And I'm like, no, I'll give you a piece of Bazooka Joe for it. And to them, it's like, oh my God, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I was going to just throw this out anyway. Well, then I take it and I know how much it's worth. But you need the efficient market in order to do that.
Yeah.
In sports betting, it works the same way. Now, if you use projections, if you're here at RotoGrinders, Like you're doing origination. You're coming up with what the price should be, right? Or you're using our tools. You're using our projections. But if you're going to use another market, it needs to be efficient. It needs to be like the card show. And I see too many people that use markets that are like the Stoops because they don't understand the makeup of what an efficient market is, like what factors make a market efficient. And the three factors are numerous participants that are active and liquid.
Yep.
That's it. Like the closer the market is to having more participants, the more and more participants, the more and more liquidity, and the more and more activity, the more likely that the market price is closer to the fairest price. So we see, obviously, James, in like NFL football, we have people talk about, oh, you know, you're going to bet an hour before NFL games on Sunday. It's like, those are the most efficient lines there could possibly be. Why? Because, I mean, they've been bet, millions of dollars have come in from millions of people over the course of the week to shape that you're not going to really beat that number, that price at that moment. Well, the same exists for any market. So even in props, James, if I gave you a choice and I said, I'm not going to tell you the price, I'm not going to tell you the number, I'm not going to tell you the prop. I said, okay, would you rather, which do you think is a more efficient market? A book. Let's take Severino under strikeouts, whatever.
Sure.
If I told you book A, if you went there right now, wouldn't let this book will not let you bet more than $82 on that prop. And your accounts are known to not have very high maxes. It's a book that half the people probably never even heard of, right? It's, you know, some skin or something somewhere. It's only available in 3 states. It's like has almost no market share. And that number is like 5.5, whatever the number is and whatever the price is.
Yeah.
Or book B, you go there and you could get $2,000 on this prop. And it's a book that you see ads like every other commercial break for, and it has like half the market share of everything. Which line do you think is more likely to be efficient?
Probably book B.
And why is that?
Because it's way more liquid. There's probably a lot more users, and it is a much more notable book.
It facilitates the 3 factors of
a
lot of participants, a lot of activity, a lot of liquidity. Yeah. You even look, because we have tools that you can see the line history. And you see that at book A, they've moved the number 3 times over the past 10 hours. Book B has moved the line 17 times over the past 10 hours, right?
Yeah.
That's activity, right? Now, let's say, James, let's say same conditions, book A, book B. Now, instead of book A, I add other books that are like book A.
Right.
So now I'm giving you book C, D, E, F, G, and H. And all those books have the same price as book A. And all those most of those books, you go to book C and you're like, yeah, I can't get down more than $12. And then you go to book D and you go, I can't get more down than $23. And then you go to book H and you're like, my account's just even banned. I haven't even made a bet here and they don't even let me in, right? Like you go in here, you go into places that this book only operates in southern West Virginia to guys named Earl, right? And it's like, okay, like, and of course you're using your Uncle Earl's account in order to you know.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And you could get $500 down there, but It's only for Southern West Virginians named Earl, right?
Right.
So, right. But there's so many of these. So you look at this prop, and it's like across, like, out of these 10 books, 9 of them have the same number. They have the on minus 145. And then you look at that book that lets you put down $2,000 and as commercials and everything like that, and tons of liquidity. And the number there is minus 125, right? Which is more likely to be right? That book, I mean, sharpest. That book, or you look and you go, well, how can 9 books all be off? And you go, it must be the FanDuel must be the one that right. I'm burying the lead here.
I know. Yeah.
Right. That's the number. That's the weird number. Most people look at that and go, that's the off number. That's where I should be going. When it turns out, that's the number you should be using to go elsewhere. Right. Because people look and they just treat all the books like they're the same. Right. They go, oh, all these recreational books, they're all, they all limit you. They all whatever like that. Like, it depends on what you consider a limit. To a lot of really high-end professional bettors, $2,000 max is nothing. They don't even waste their time with. But for props, $2,000 is a lot of money to get down on a prop. If you get $2,000, you could be in business, right? 100. If they limited me, if all books limited me to say, Jordan, you can't bet more than $100 on a prop, I'd say, is that the only thing you're going to do? Is that you're going to leave me alone otherwise? He said, yes. I said, I will shake your hand and agree to that deal, and just good luck to you, sir. I mean, I'm perfectly fine with that. So it's like the limits don't have to be ridiculous, but there are books that you go to place a prop bet and it's like the max limit is $2.18. And you're like, what the hell? Right? Those numbers don't matter. If a book isn't going to take more than $3 on a prop, like you shouldn't be using that number as a basis of anything. Why? It doesn't fit the efficient market theory, right? They're literally limiting participation, right? The activity is low and the liquidity is low. Just because you have 9 of those doesn't make it that all 9 of them are the same thing. So many people I see, James, they look at this odds screen. They go to scoresandodds.com, right? We have an odds screen on our sister site. And they try to play this game of, line shopping, which is good. If you know what you're betting on, sure, line shopping is good. And they go and they try, well, it's this price here, so I'm going to bet it there. Without understanding the market, the actual economic function of, well, you're comparing a number that like it doesn't matter. Like, okay, you're basing your Roberto Alomar cards based on the price of some 8-year-old in the stoop on 64th Street, and then you're going to the card show and buying cards and wondering why am I not profitable? I'm buying cards from the card dealer and then trying to sell it to the 8-year-old kids and they're going, well, I'll give you a Kit Kat. And it's like, no, this card is supposed to be worth $7. Right. It's like, no, but I don't know who this guy is. And they're like, yeah, but they say that they don't care. They don't care. You can't use that anymore. So now you understand my analogy.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, I think, where we were talking about how comparing on people were saying on Twitter and still say it, that it's a plus EV bet if you're betting at a site where the price is different, right? And that's not true. Without the projection to guide where you should be placing your bets and guide which direction you should treat as your source of truth, you're just looking at lines. It doesn't matter. So let me posit a question to you. Say that those 9 terrible books have Severino for 5.5 strikeouts, right? His OU is 5.5. And then
and the price. There needs to be a price attached to that.
Okay, at 5.5 and negative 140.
Okay.
Right. And then the good book, the book that you want to treat as the one that fits the efficient market value, right? Let's say that one has 6.5. Extreme example here, 6.5 and like plus 125 or something, right? So I mean that's we're talking like a 15-20% difference here. Would you say that you should treat all the other books as wrong and use that one as a source of value and bet the over at any of the other books, assuming that difference between those prices and the efficient market is on the book that is 6.5 and plus 125 rather than 5.5?
To me, the numbers and prices don't matter. I mean, obviously, I bet bottom up. I don't care. I don't care what but I understand how the market dynamics of especially baseball props work. Like what moves what, right? Because if you're even going to bet top down, you still need to understand why stuff moves. Like if you don't understand why stuff moves, then I don't know what you've been sold with, steam chasing. Like you have to know. It'll always come down to whatever place has the highest limits and the highest liquidity. I'm going to treat much more closer to the real deal. So even with projections, James.
Yeah.
I don't want to say there have been times every single day. Because obviously I bet a lot on K props, right? For starting pitchers in baseball. But also pitcher outs, hits allowed, all the different types of pitcher props. If I bet an overnight, right, on a K prop, and I wake up in the morning, and by noon, especially FanDuel, FanDuel has moved against me, I may not have made the bet on FanDuel, but I'm just saying if I see that I bet on Severino under 5.5 strikeouts at minus 120. And then I wake up in the morning and on FanDuel, the under is plus 105. I'm like, that moved against me. Like this is the better price now. Like I expected it to be minus 145, not plus 105. If that was BetMGM or something like that, I wouldn't care, right? I wouldn't care. But FanDuel takes much higher. FanDuel and DraftKings actually take more money than the other sites. I mean, like Bet365 doesn't move their stuff, so like I'm not concerned. If the number hasn't moved or moved against me on some of the garbage sites that aren't as liquid and have lower limits, I'm not as concerned. But when I'm concerned. I'm not sitting there going, oh, now it's plus 105. Let me double down. Actually, it stops me in my tracks and it goes, maybe there's something in this projection. Maybe there's some pitch count off. Maybe there's some piece of information that the projection needs to update for. There's some umpire data or weather data or something that's missing. Some batting order that's wrong, right? I don't know what it is, but it's more likely that if comparing to a more efficient, more liquid market. So even though I have no problem betting on 100 things across a model and it'll by the end of I'm going to be profitable at the end of the year. Doesn't matter to me, but I do see these outliers and I go, yeah, I bet this thing overnight and it moved against me on a place that I can now go and place like $1,500 on a strikeout prop. That sends up, antennas of I shouldn't be so confident with my overnight, right?
Yeah.
Now, if that's the place where it moved in my direction, right? I saw it the other last week. I mean, I've been sick, so I haven't put anything in since last week. There was all Clark Schmidt. I think Clark Schmidt. There was a Clark last week or something. Clark Schmidt like opened at like 7.5 something, and like I just overnight it was like it was 7.5, and the under was like plus. I got it at plus 110. He
Mhm.
closed at 5.5 at like the under was still like minus 125. So like that's incredible amount of closing line value. But that's what I want to see. I want to wake up and go, wow, the numbers move so heavily in my favor that especially at books that I could open up right now and place $1,000 bets on. Right? Like to me, that's the printing money. That is what you want. I don't care if it's like, oh, these 8 other books, they all have it at this like, no, they're the slow to movers. Just because there's more of them doesn't mean that like, well, they all can't be. No, they're all horrible. These are all horrible rec books that you have to be careful because they're gonna end up limiting you to $13 a bet. So you got to play. You can't be that greedy doing that stuff. But some of the books they're much more on top of it. I'm not saying that a book like FanDuel, a book like DraftKings are efficient. You should be just using that as your source of truth. But they're much more closer than using anything else, and even a lot of offshores, because you have to think to yourself, how many people are betting on it? How active are they? And what's the liquidity? What are the limits? What are the books willing to do? And different markets have different dynamics, different books. So I'm just going to check FanDuel and everything. Not there are sports where I would not FanDuel is the place where I'm making the most amount of money because they don't move their stuff quick enough. And then there's some places in some sports where it's completely the opposite. College football, for instance, James. College football, if you bet props on college football, I'll give you a little tip. I mean, assuming it's the same dynamic as it was this past season. If you bet college football, Saturday college football props,
right?
Because
Yeah,
obviously there are games on in the middle of the week, but games that are on Saturday, I would surmise that if you bet your props on FanDuel on Thursday night,
yeah,
and then you bet the same props on Friday night, the person that bet it on Thursday, wildly profitable. Person that bet it on Friday, wildly unprofitable.
yeah. And then the person who bet it on Saturday, why are we doing this? Drunk. Actually,
but the key is on FanDuel. The thing is that even on Saturday morning, there's still value available. It's just it's not on FanDuel though, right? It's on Caesars, who I don't know, they have one college football guy that they just lock in a closet or something, and he just got tired and he put up numbers and they just don't move them or something. I mean, like the thing is that books like Caesars also have put in insane holds into their college football props that there's a receiving prop, the opener goes up for some receiver at 63.5.
Yeah.
And like I have his projection at like 42. Like it's just like way low. I mean, just really low. So what'll happen is that FanDuel's opener will be 63.5, but everyone else's opener is going to be 60.5. Right? So you look and you go, well, I'm easily taking under 63.5 on FanDuel on Wednesday night or something, Thursday morning. And I take that. By Friday, FanDuel is at 47.5. And MGM is at like 55.5. And Caesars is still sitting there at 60.5. Like Caesars just like, feel free. We put a 60-cent spread in between. So yeah, you could take the under 60.5, but it's like minus 214 or like something like that. Like we just don't feel like moving anything, right? We're just gonna move the price just up and make the spread like this or whatever. So like, if FanDuel's gonna act more because someone like me is going there and putting in $100, $200 props, and other people are putting 500,000, whatever. The limits are lower, obviously, on the openers. Same thing for K props. K props overnight on FanDuel, I may get 150 down. Right? I can't get more than that. But like come noon the next day, they're like, you want to put 1,200 $1,262.52, whatever the max when you bang your head against the keyboard. Like, that's the difference. So, like, these are just economic principles of markets, of sports betting markets in general. And people want to ascribe to these, like, well, if the book is offshore, it's sharp. That isn't true. Like, if it, Circa. Circa's a market maker, which means their lines are infallible. No, it's not. Like, earlier, when people top down and trying to steam chase openers, like in college basketball, not realizing that when the limits are low, the market it makes it easier for the market to move, right? Because if market makers are going to move based on sharp action, it doesn't take much to move a market, right? $500 bet can move some markets in overnight, college basketball, that you look and you go, wow, the money line, the sharp book has them at minus 135, and DraftKings has them at like minus 110. I'm going to slam this. And next thing you know, they close at like minus 107, and you're wondering how the hell did that happen? It's like, yeah, because someone manipulated the market, because $500, that's all it. Everyone copied the bad number until everyone hammered the other way on the rec books. That's how markets work. Like, if you understand how markets work and pay attention to how they work. I didn't just come out of the blue and just say, hey, FanDuel's K-props. You're betting FanDuel's K-props at an hour before game time, say, that trash emoji, whatever, the furnace, like, you're not being profitable. It's like, it's unlikely that those numbers have value to them. It's like, that's not because I'm just making a hypothesis. It's like, it's literally something I've seen. I mean, like, I pay attention to it. And I go, you know what? How come I'm like never betting on FanDuel past like 2:00 in the afternoon ever? Right? Because I'm looking at projections, and it's like, because everything is moved towards those projections on FanDuel, and all these smaller books, they seem to not care as much. So that's still available there, but not available here.
Yeah, and we have said, or at least I have said, that I think anybody can be a profitable sports bettor. I think anyone can be profitable hitting props. Like, you got all the resources in the world to be profitable with props, some like 5, 6, 7% ROI. But the dynamic that you have to utilize to be profitable betting props is much different than that in DFS. People going from DFS over in betting props, or even betting, sides totals, whatever. A lot of those people have developed the habit of making a lineup half an hour before lock, and then think that they can do the same thing with props. And nope. If you want to hit your props, hit them in the morning, especially for NBA. Hit them in the morning. And if you miss probably like shoot around, play DFS, man, or play pick six. But like, play something where the price isn't going to move, because you've already missed the good price. And you're probably not getting much value.
James, paydirt_DFS, right? Because you have projections also, right?
I do, yeah. So over at paydrdfs.com, you can find all my models for every sport, including betting models. You can find me on Twitter at paydirt_DFS. I have some really cool projects that I've been working on, so keep a lookout for those.
Right. I would also suggest, there are free courses. Like, you go to Coursera or something like that. You could go to Khan Academy, YouTube. Some of these economics, you don't have to take an economics course. Look at me. Does it look like I have an economics degree? I don't. Right. But I like to read a lot. I like to learn. So just understanding basic economics concepts, right? Efficient market theory, right? Adverse selection. The same way that in DFS, understand what's the difference between mean, median, and mode, right? What is a normal distribution? What is a distribution, right? What is a projection? Like, things like that make it so much easier for you to, further your success, or at least increase the potential for your success not just in DFS, but in anything that involves probability and statistics, because we see how many dumb people there are out there, right? That's who we're winning the money from, right? It's not us against the books. Maybe for the limits there are. That's why I'm one of the few people, James, that like I root for the accounts that have like, here's a 17-leg parlay that 118 people are tailing. Like, if it wasn't for those people, like, the books would have to get sharper, and they would have it wouldn't be this soft, right? So I want the dumb. That's my whole sales approach to this is I want people to be dumber. Don't use the tools here, RotoGrinders. Don't save $250 on a 6-month subscription. Don't do any of this. I'm teaching you. In the back of my head, going 95% of people aren't going to do it anyway. 5% of the people that will, and you'll say thank you to me, and you're still making my life a little bit harder, but hopefully it won't be hard enough, because the early bird gets the worm, right? Because I typically get all my props in way before everyone else, so I see where everything moves, and I go, oh yeah, okay, there goes all the late people, right? It's like, oh, okay, why did all the numbers move in my favor? It's like, yeah, because I got them first. And then everyone else said, I'm going to wake up at, I'm going to take a look at this on my lunch break at work, right? At noon. It's like, yeah, good luck on those numbers. I've gotten them like, 10, 15 cents better than that. And then go, well, my ROI is 2%. It's like, yeah, my ROI is 7%. It's like, how do you get that ROI on the same bets? It's like just getting the better number and the better price, right? There you go.
With a lot of volume.
Here's Grant. Grant, someone in our Discord, in the Blender's Game Theory channel, if you want to join. He always asks questions, right? He's been there for a while. I hit my goal already this year. It's already April, all thanks to these two. So there you go. He's the one. Grant's the one that's trimming away some of my ROI. So there's one of them. So we found one of them. Okie doke. Hit that thumbs up button. Hope you enjoyed this. This was more of an old school episode of.
Yeah. We talked a lot of theory, talked a lot of actual like hard math concepts and market value stuff. This was a good one. This is like 2 years ago. This is when we first started.
Right. It's more like me talking. I did most of the talking.
Well, just like 2 years ago, right?
Rudely. I'm not saying that as an insult. I'm like, I just know that I'm very rude. I'd start talking and I realize that I've been talking for 14 minutes straight.
Yeah, you know what we call that? We call that a yapper. You're a yapper. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with being a yapper.
As long as people are finding this helpful. If you are, hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. We got Grinders live later today. Crunch time. We got an MLB slate. We got a UFC pay-per-view card coming up later this week. I know I missed this past one being sick, but we will be covering that later this week. Be mostly MLB this week. We also got some, I believe, Wednesday and Thursday. It'll be Grinders live early or something. I mean, you'll see me in the morning. It just may not. Maybe with Dean, maybe with someone else. But I will be here, and we'll be talking about mostly baseball, but anything else that you may be thinking about in daily fantasy props and pick 'em. Anytime you hear on RotoGrinders Today.